I caught my son-in-law stealing from me on a hidden camera. I never thought I'd be the kind of person sitting in a house talking to a camera because I can't carry what I know by myself anymore. But here we are. What I'm about to share didn't crash into my life, it crept in, like a draft through a bad window seal, making everything colder each day. I'm Arthur Nolan, Art, widower in Riverton, Michigan. The house still smells like lemon oil. She's been gone a few years, but I still hold on to the rituals that steadied us. I set a glass of water on my nightstand, I stack my mail, and I keep emergency cash hidden in a paperback on the second shelf of the den, an old habit from leaner days. That last habit is where this begins. One Tuesday, I pulled the book down, the fake spine wobbles if you know what you're looking for, and that rubber-banded stack felt thinner between my fingers. I told myself I must have miscounted. I recounted, wrote the number inside the dust jacket, slid it back. By Friday, it happened again. Not a few dollars, a clean, deliberate bite, maybe 100, maybe 2. The mind tries to tidy confusion. Maybe I paid cash somewhere and forgot. Maybe I tipped too much. I checked my online banking. Every debit was accounted for. The cash, though, no trail. Just the ache of absence. My daughter, Emily, and her husband, Victor, had been staying with me for a few months, which turned into for now, which turned into until we get on our feet. I didn't mind. Victor worked nights at a distribution center. He'd come home tired and grease-streaked, scarf down leftovers, mutter a thank you, and disappear into the guest room with Emily. I wanted to believe the best. That Saturday, I brought it up to Emily, gently. We were rinsing strawberries. "Kiddo," I said, she hates that. "Have you needed any cash? I'm not accusing. I just want to make sure I'm not losing my marbles." She laughed in that brittle, sunny way that says she wants the subject to die. "Dad, no. Why would I take your emergency money? Maybe you just forgot what you had." Maybe. The pencil mark told me otherwise. I let it go because she looked exhausted, and I promised myself I wouldn't be the father who makes his daughter choose between her husband and her blood. Ruth used to say, "Pick your battles, Art." I slept poorly that night anyway. The next week, I tested my own sanity. I took the stack out, counted slowly, set the rubber band, and wrote the total, bold, underlined, on a sticky note I hid behind a framed photo of Ruth. If I was wrong, fine. I'd apologize to an empty room. If I was right, well, what was I supposed to do? Tear my daughter's life open with a guess? 2 days later, I pulled the book and felt hollow before I even saw the numbers. Another 100 gone. The sticky note under Ruth's photo looked back at me like a witness. I put both hands on the shelf to steady myself. The house hummed with the refrigerator and the clock. It felt like being 12 again, catching your breath after you realize the shadow at the end of the hall is not a coat on a chair. It's a person. I took inventory. Kitchen drawers, liquor cabinet, the jewelry box with Ruth's pearl studs, untouched. Only the cash. I checked the front door locks, the back slider, the laundry window. No scratches, no forced entry. Whoever it was didn't feel like a stranger. I started noticing patterns. Victor's schedule left him alone in the house some mornings after Emily went to her early shift at the clinic. He'd come back around 2, sleep until 6, and then drift around the living room, restless. He was polite to my face, always Mr. Nolan, helpful on trash night, but sometimes tiny things. He'd sigh when he thought I wasn't listening or answer a question with the kind of grunt that says, "I'm only tolerating you because I have to." I didn't want to build a case out of size. The second time I mentioned the missing cash, Emily's jaw set. "Dad, I swear Victor wouldn't do that. He's been picking up extra hours because we owe on the car. Please don't start anything." Her eyes got shiny and stubborn, the way Ruth's did when a bill came due. I felt like the bad guy for even bringing it up. So I made a promise, to her and to myself. No accusations, no confrontations, not until I had proof I could hold in my hand. If I had to be wrong, I'd be wrong loudly and apologize loudly and cook 'em both a steak. But if I was right, I needed something undeniable, something Emily couldn't talk herself out of when she saw it. I owed her that much care, even if the truth hurt. That night, I lay in bed with the glass of water on the nightstand, the room smelling like clean cotton sheets and lemon from the wood polish. The clock on my dresser clicked past 2. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the pipes settle. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Maybe the house just breathes, I told myself. Was I turning into a paranoid old man who marks the milk with a Sharpie? I huffed a quiet laugh, rolled onto my side, and watched the dim outline of Ruth's photo until sleep came. Morning brought routine. Coffee, the news, sweeping the porch. I tucked the book back into place, straightened the row so the fake spine wouldn't look off, and ran errands. When I got home, the house was quiet. Victor's boots weren't by the door, which meant he'd either left early or carried them inside to be considerate. That should have counted for something. I wanted it to count for something. But the pencil number inside the dust jacket throbbed in my head like a toothache. I understood something simple and terrible. Without proof, I had nothing but a story that would make my daughter cry. With proof, I might save her from years of excuses. That was the day my doubt hardened into a plan. If you've ever gone through something like this, drop a comment. I'm listening. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comment section. Okay. Deep breath. Let me tell you everything. The next morning, I did the thing I'd been avoiding. I stopped thinking like a dad and started thinking like an engineer. Feelings are fog, plans cut through it. If I was wrong, I wanted to be loudly, provably wrong. If I was right, I needed video, not suspicion. I drove down Riverfront Boulevard to Metrotech Security, a narrow shop wedged between a phone repair place and a tax office. I asked for something small for home monitoring. The clerk handed me a unit the size of a sugar cube, SentryCam Micro 2, 1080p, infrared night vision, motion-triggered clips, magnet base, peel and stick mount. I bought 2 and a pair of memory cards, paid cash, and left with the bag pinched tight in my fist. Back home, I spread the boxes on the kitchen table like tools before surgery. Packaging popped, batteries clicked. I downloaded the WatchGuard app, named the cameras Den and Bedroom, and switched on the timestamp overlay so future me couldn't argue with the clock. When the tiny red dots blinked alive, it felt like I'd invited 2 silent witnesses into the house. Placement mattered. The Den unit needed a clean view of the shelf where I kept the hollow book. Hiding it behind the plant killed the angle. Between 2 spines, it looked obvious. Finally, I slid it inside an old wooden birdhouse from a craft fair. There's a small door cut into the front. The magnet grabbed a screw inside, the lens peered through the hole, and the app showed the perfect frame: my bookcase, the decoy birdhouse, and the edge of my desk. The camera in the bedroom was harder. I don't like cameras where I sleep. But the nightstand, my water glass, Ruth's photo, the lamp, was the little square of ground I protect every night. If anyone touched it, I wanted to know. I unscrewed the decorative vent opposite the bed, stuck the camera behind the slats at a shallow angle, and put the screws back. Through the app, I saw a gray test image: the nightstand, the bed edge, the doorway, and a slice of hall. Then the rules. Motion detection, 20-second clips, 5-second cooldown, no audio. I wanted proof, not a wiretap. Next came measurable bait. I opened the Den book, pulled the rubber-banded cache, and counted slowly. 1,200 in 20s and 50s. I recorded each serial number in my black repair notebook, then folded 3 bills into the middle so any straightening would show. I slid the stack back, pressed the fake spine into place, and wiped the shelf out of habit more than need. Guilt made a pass. Was I crossing a line I couldn't uncross? If this was a misunderstanding, would I poison the air between me and my daughter forever? I pressed my palm to the bookcase until the heat of my hand bled into the wood and said, out loud, "This isn't revenge, it's clarity. A mirror, not a trap." I buried the packaging deep in the recycling, under old newspapers, and walked the bag to the curb. On my way back, I noticed Victor's sedan. A crumpled schedule from the distribution center lay on the dash, Shift B highlighted. I refused to build a case from scraps. Good people get tired. Good people make dumb choices, but numbers don't care about stories. Dinner was pasta with jarred sauce. Emily talked about a patient who brings the nurses chocolates and insists on using the wrong names. Victor ate fast and scrolled his phone. He said thanks when he finished, which would have sounded polite if the fork hadn't clanged against the plate like he couldn't wait to be done. He vanished to grab sleep before the shift. My jaw ached from the things I didn't say. At 9, I did my little patrol. Front lock, backslider, kitchen window. More ritual than security. In the den, I pulled a random book and tapped the spine, a pantomime for anyone who might be watching me instead. In the bedroom, I set my water on the ring it always leaves, straightened Ruth's photo a 1/4 inch, and cut the lamp to see how the camera handled low light. The phone shone it in silver gray, the glass glowing like a coin, the doorway a darker rectangle. I ran a test. In the den, I opened the hollow book, fanned the bills, closed it. In the bedroom, I lifted the water, took a sip, set it down. Within a minute, my phone buzzed 2 alerts. The den clip showed my hand, the book, the timestamp counting up. The bedroom clip showed my silhouette performing the simplest act, drinking water. Boring is what I wanted. Boring is admissible. I tucked the cables out of sight, plugged both units in so battery life wouldn't betray me, and sat on the edge of the bed. Preparation felt small and mean, studying schedules, knowing which boards creak, knowing precisely when Emily's alarm would chirp. Even when the purpose is protection, readiness can feel like betrayal. What was I supposed to do? Keep pretending the numbers weren't bleeding down? The house settled. A truck hissed along Easton Parkway. Somewhere a train stitched itself across town. I lay back with one arm over my eyes and listened to the clock tick. The app sat open on my chest like a pact I'd made with the future. I must have drifted. At 2:14 a.m., the phone vibrated against my sternum. Motion detected, bedroom. I didn't move. I let the clip record its 20 seconds. Another buzz. Motion detected, den. 2 gray thumbnails waited on the screen like sealed envelopes. I dimmed the brightness so the glow wouldn't spill across the room and tapped the first one. The black and white frame showed my doorway. A figure crossed the threshold and paused at my nightstand. The hand hovered over the glass, too long for anything innocent, then withdrew. The clip ended at 20 seconds, the red dot winking out as if it had seen enough. I opened the second alert. The den came into view, the bookcase, the little bird house, the familiar paperback with the fake spine. The same figure moved to the shelf like a person following a map they'd walked before, drew the book forward, opened it, and angled the pages to block the view. The clip cut off before the hand even left the frame. I lay in the dark with my phone face down on my chest and listened to the clock and the blood in my ears. Proof was no longer theoretical. It had a timestamp. I told myself to make it to morning without breaking the house in half. I didn't make it to morning. At 3:07 a.m., I slid out of bed and padded to the den, phone in one hand like I was carrying a lit match.
I closed the door softly, sat at the desk, and opened the WatchGuard app on the bigger monitor. No sound, just the cold honesty of grayscale. I started with the bedroom clip. The frame froze on my doorway, my own sleeping shoulder a gray hill in the foreground. Then he appeared. Victor's build is unmistakable if you live with him. The forward tilt in his shoulders, the way he favors his left leg after long shifts. He crossed the carpet like he owned quiet. He stopped at my nightstand. He didn't check the lamp drawer or rifle anything. The hand went straight to the water glass like that had always been the destination. He hovered, wrist bones high under the skin. His face never tilted toward the camera, but when he bent forward, the edge of his jaw caught the IR glow. He held the glass a few inches off the ring it leaves on the wood and stared at the surface like he was studying a specimen. His mouth tightened, the tiniest contraction in the throat. Then, 2 quick spits into the glass. The surface trembled and settled. He set it down carefully, not to clink, and the clip ended. I didn't move for a full minute. My breath felt hot and wrong inside my chest, like I'd swallowed a winter gust. The first clear thought was practical. Dump the water, clean the glass, don't put your mouth anywhere near that again. The second was a room with 1,000 doors. Why? What kind of contempt lives in a person that spitting into an old man's water feels like a victory? I stood, carried the glass to the bathroom, and poured it down the sink like it was evidence I couldn't bear to hold. I washed it with scalding water and dish soap, rinsed, watched the suds circle the drain, and dried the rim with a towel until the cotton squeaked. Then I set a fresh glass on the nightstand and turned back to the desk. The den clip was worse, because it wasn't an impulse, it was a practiced route. I scrubbed back to 2:16 a.m. The same silhouette came into frame, straight to the bookcase. He paused at the row and went for the exact paperback with the false spine. No trial and error, no hesitation. He opened it away from the lens, one hand shielding what he was doing, and the other hand worked inside like someone picking a pocket. Even without audio, I could hear the page whisper in my head. When his head turned just for a second, the angle revealed the small white scar on his chin he got as a kid on a bike. One of those details you don't forget once you've heard the story over dinner. He tucked the book back, squared the row, wiped the shelf with the side of his hand, like wiping prints, and left. I ran both clips again, then again. I zoomed in until the pixels got blocky and ugly. Each time the same sequence played like a bruise you press to make sure it hurts. Bedroom at 2:14, den at 2:16. A line drawn straight through my trust. I opened the repair notebook and turned to the page with the serial numbers. The stack should have been 1,200. I took the book down, thumbed the rubber band, and counted. 11 even. A crisp 100 gone. I circled the missing serials and dated the page. Numbers don't have feelings. They just sit there and wait for you to stop pretending. I backed the clips up 3 different ways. Copy to my desktop. Copy to a thumb drive labeled water with painter's tape. Copy to a second drive labeled shelf, tucked in the pocket of my old blue work shirt hanging in the hall closet. I exported still frames with the timestamp burned into the corner. I don't know why I thought like a courtroom. Maybe because I knew what was coming wasn't a conversation. It was a reckoning. I tried to sleep after that. The body lay down. The mind didn't. I stared at the red dot on the smoke detector and thought about Ruth. She used to say that kindness is protection you build with your hands every day. Meals, rides, clean sheets, a soft place to land. The ugliness of what I saw wasn't just the theft, it was the desecration of that soft place. You don't spit in a man's water unless you want him to swallow your contempt.
At 6, I brewed coffee I didn't drink and sat at the table with the mug warming my fingers. Emily's door opened. Her hair was a sleep-tangled halo, her sweatshirt inside out. "Morning," she yawned and kissed my head like she has since she was little. Victor appeared a minute later, rubbing his eyes, scratching his jaw, offering a "Mr. Nolan" like he was stepping onto a stage. I watched him rinse his cereal bowl, rinse my mug, rinse his hands longer than necessary. Did he know the camera had seen him? No. He was the same man who nodded at my list of chores on the fridge and left his wet towel on the back of a chair. I wanted to hurl the thumb drive across the table between his knuckles. Instead, I said, "Busy night?" He shrugged. "Same as always." The casual lie felt more obscene than if he'd threatened me. When they left, Emily to the clinic, Victor to catch sleep before another shift, I called Frank Delgado. We'd worked the line together for 30 years before I retired. Frank isn't poetic, which is exactly what I needed. I told him, plain, what the camera showed. He was quiet for 3 seconds. "Art," he said finally, "you need to decide if this is a police thing or a family thing. I don't want Emily to find out from a cop. Then you need rock-solid evidence and a plan, because if that boy denies, she'll default to him. Love first, logic later. That's what it is. Would you call the police? I'd make sure I had something he can't wiggle out of. Then I'd give him the choice to walk out with a bag and a shred of dignity. But that spitting, that makes it personal. You don't owe him a soft landing." After we hung up, I sat at the table and folded the edge of a napkin into a sharp point until my thumbnail hurt. The word personal stuck. This wasn't about $100. This was about how he saw me in my own home, an obstacle, a mark, a man whose comfort and dignity could be played with in the dark. How was I supposed to show Emily without breaking her? I pulled up the clips again and pictured her face, denial, then doubt, then the terrible moment when your stomach drops because a truth you don't want sinks its teeth in. I couldn't spring this on her without preparing myself to hold her up when she fell. I cleaned the nightstand with lemon oil, slow circles until the wood looked new. I straightened Ruth's photo, freshened the water, and stood on the carpet testing how close a person could approach before the camera triggered. I moved the angle 2 degrees to catch more of the doorway. In the den, I adjusted the birdhouse a hair, just enough to widen the frame and catch hands more fully. By noon, I'd eaten nothing and felt like I'd swallowed gravel. The house hummed, oblivious. A plan began to take shape, not out of vengeance, but control. If he came back, and he would, I needed a way to make denial impossible, to force action in the open instead of the shadows. I wrote 3 words in the notebook under the serial numbers: "Make it undeniable." Then I closed the book, put the birdhouse back on the shelf, and waited.
The plan arrived in pieces, like hardware spread across a table until it starts to look like a thing. I didn't want drama. I wanted an outcome no one could babble past. What would make denial impossible? A thief can argue about shadows and angles, but he can't argue with his own hands reacting in real time. I drove to a party supply place on the edge of town and stood in an aisle full of stupid pranks, trick gum, snapping mints, pens that deliver a harmless zap. I bought a tiny shock module the size of a postage stamp and a Bluetooth tracker disc you could stick in a wallet. I stopped at a prop shop and bought a pack of prop motion picture bills, legal to own, clearly marked, even the texture wrong if you know cash like I do. If he took the bait and tried to spend it, he'd hit a wall fast. I wasn't planning to let it leave the house, but I wanted layers that all pointed in one direction, away from me guessing and toward him choosing. Back at the kitchen table, I laid everything out: shock module, tracker, decoy wallet I'd kept from a conference years ago, the prop bills. I wrote "safe" in my notebook and underlined it twice.
I wasn't booby-trapping the house. I was creating a startle, nothing more, the kind you get from a doorknob in winter. I touched the module leads to test it on my own fingertip. A little pop, enough to jolt a hand open, not enough to hurt. If anyone asks, I told myself, I did it to avoid a fight, not spark one. The tracker paired with my phone in under a minute. I named it Book. I slid the disc into the wallet's inner lining and taped it so it wouldn't rattle. Then I stacked the prop bills inside, wrapped with a real rubber band I'd previously used on my emergency cash. I printed a tiny label, Property of Arthur Nolan, and tucked it beneath the cash where it wouldn't be seen unless the wallet was emptied. I wanted every layer to say quietly but firmly, "This wasn't yours." The shock module took finesse. I stitched it into the wallet's billfold seam with heavy thread, the contact strip aligned so a thumb or forefinger reaching for the bills would bridge it. The switch sat under the coin pocket flap. Flick on, wallet zaps once upon contact, then resets. I practiced with the module off, opening and closing, testing the angle until it felt seamless. Then I flipped it on and brushed the contact myself. The little pop made me wince and laugh at the same time. Childish, maybe, but I wasn't interested in being noble while someone rifled my life. I considered the old hiding spot, the hollow book on the second shelf. Too familiar. He already knew it. Familiar was good, but I needed to control the scene, so I made a minor adjustment that would matter only to someone who'd done this before. I moved the hollow book one spot to the left and slid a plain paperback into its old slot. To anyone else, nothing had changed. To someone on a route, it would mean 2 beats of searching, maybe a shift in his stance, maybe a muttered curse. All of it caught on camera. I placed the decoy wallet inside the hollow book, bills peeking just enough to be inviting if the book were opened. Then I opened my repair notebook to the serial number page and drew a box around the words "prop," clearly marked. If this ever became a legal question, I wanted a record of intent. Clarity, not counterfeit. I texted Frank, "Setting bait tonight. Startle, not harm. Cameras ready." He answered with a thumbs up and a beat later, "Remember, you're not trying to win an argument, Art. You're trying to end one." At dinner, Emily talked about rental listings she'd bookmarked and how prices were ridiculous, like you have to sell a kidney to get a studio. Victor nodded at the right places. He even asked if I wanted him to patch a soft spot on the back steps, and I said that would be great, while my chest filled with a fizzing mixture of contempt and grief. Was I building a trap under my own roof? Or was I just turning a light on in a room he'd made dark? After the dishes, I did my rounds. I checked camera angles, den birdhouse just so, bedroom vent slats aligned. I set the nightstand the way I always did, water glass on its coaster ring, Ruth's photo a neat 1/4 inch toward the lamp. I looked at her face, the way her smile deepened one eye more than the other, and I said, "I'm trying to do this right, Ruth." The room held the words and gave nothing back. At 9, Victor retreated. At 10, Emily kissed my cheek and said goodnight. At 11, the house felt like a stage after the audience goes home. I walked to the den and for the first time in this whole mess felt something like calm. The pieces were in place. The only variable left was his choice. I sat at the desk and wrote out the steps I'd take if, when, the plan tripped. 1. Wake Emily. 2. Get Victor into the living room. 3. Play the clips. 4. Offer him the door and a bag. 5. Do not touch him. 6. If he escalates, call the police. I tucked the list under the keyboard and placed the 2 thumb drives on top of it like paperweights. I set my phone's tracker alert to loud if book moved. I flipped the wallet's shock switch on and closed the hollow book with a steady hand. Back in the bedroom, I lay down and tried to breathe past the tight belt of anticipation around my ribs. How do you trap a thief without becoming one? The question fluttered and settled. I wasn't tricking him into a crime. I was witnessing one with better lighting. I closed my eyes and counted my breaths, not to sleep, but to keep from jumping at every sound the house made. At 1:38 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not the gentle camera ping, a brighter tone. Tracker, book moved. I didn't sit up. I didn't breathe. I let the alert log the event, silenced it, and waited. Because the worst thing you can do in a moment like that is crash into it with your nerves hanging out. 2 minutes later, the familiar motion-detected den banner slid across the lock screen, followed by motion-detected bedroom. I rolled to my side, thumbed the brightness down, and watched the den clip first. The doorway, the bookcase, the hollow book one space to the left. A figure entered. He went straight to the old spot and paused. His hand ghosted the spines, then shifted left and found the fake. He pulled it, opened it, and there, the wallet. He reached. His fingers slid in. The little zap popped like a secret. His hand jerked, and for a split second he half froze, half snarled. He didn't yelp. He wasn't a child, but instinct is louder than dignity. He shook his hand once and looked around as if the room could answer for the shock. Then he grabbed the wallet again, this time more carefully, and slid the bills free, turning them toward the low light. He didn't notice the faint, for motion picture purposes stamp at first. He was too busy pocketing the cash. The clip ended right as he squared the spines, exactly as before, almost bored in his competence. Then the bedroom thumbnail waited on my screen like a held breath. I tapped it. The doorway, the shape of a man who should have been asleep. He stood at my nightstand, the same posture, the same hover. This time he didn't touch the glass. He just looked at it for a beat too long, as if deciding where he'd place his disrespect next time. Then he turned and ghosted down the hall. I sat up and let my feet find the floor. The tracker pinged again. Book left the den. He had the wallet in his pocket. Of course he did. It meant I could make the case in the bright light of day, not chase a ghost around the house. I could point to the item and say, "Empty your pockets," and know exactly what would spill out. But I wasn't going to explode the house at 2 a.m, not with Emily asleep and my temper raw. I needed morning, coffee, witnesses made of sunlight and hard footage. I set the phone face down, laid back, and let the clock do what clocks do. Pull you forward, 1 second at a time, toward the moment you can't avoid. At 6:41 a.m., gray light pooled in the kitchen like a mercy I hadn't earned. I brewed coffee for the smell and poured it down the sink because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The thumb drive sat on the table like 2 black teeth. The tracker still pinged, book in range. Good. I didn't want to chase anyone through town. I wanted sunlight and a straight line. I followed my own checklist. I woke Emily first, softly, the way you wake someone to a difficult day, not a fire. "Em," I said at her door, "I need you in the living room, now." She heard something in my voice and came without questions. Sweatshirt on backward, hair in a lopsided tie. Victor trailed a minute later, bleary, chin shadowed, eyes already narrowed like he'd been born halfway into a defense. I had the TV ready on the WatchGuard app, volume at 0, brightness up. I didn't sit. I stood near the fireplace with the remote in one hand, the repair notebook, and a thumb drive on the mantel. "We're going to watch a couple of short clips," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was quieter, slower, as if the sentences were a bridge I'd measured before stepping. "What is this?" Victor rubbed his neck like I'd dragged him into a meeting. "Evidence," I said. "Please sit." Emily perched on the couch arm. Victor stayed standing, arms crossed. I hit play. The den appeared, silver and still, timestamp burning in the corner. The doorway, the bookcase, the hollow book one slot to the left. A figure entered. He went to the old spot, hesitated, shifted, pulled the fake. He opened it and reached. The little flinch when the zap landed was almost imperceptible on the screen, but in the room I could hear the sound he must have made. Surprise, anger, a swallowed curse. He pocketed the cash, squared the spines, wiped the shelf with the side of his hand, and left. I didn't speak. I didn't look at him. I let the 20 seconds finish, then cued the second clip. My own bedroom doorway slid into view. My own sleeping shoulder, the nightstand, the water glass catching light like a coin. The figure again, the same posture, the same silent confidence. The hand hovered, the mouth tightened. 2 spits into the glass, a careful set down, exit. I paused the frame with his wrist above my nightstand. The room made a sound like cloth tearing, Emily gasping and swallowing a sob at the same time. She covered her mouth. "Victor?" she said, but the name came out like a question she was begging the world to answer differently. He moved first. "This is insane," he laughed. It cracked. "That could be anyone. This is night vision. You can't even see a face." "Then stand where he stood and humor me," I said, and I stepped him next to the TV. Left leg favored after long shifts. Scar on the chin from a childhood bike wipeout. Same hoodie, see the rip at the left cuff? Same habit, wipe the shelf with the side of your hand. The camera doesn't need to see your face when it can see your biography. His jaw twitched. "You're crazy, old man." "Emily," I said without looking away from him, "I'd like him to empty his pockets onto the coffee table." She was crying now, shoulders hitching, but she said, "Do it." No softness, just an instruction from a person standing on muscle memory because the ground had liquefied. He scoffed, dug into his pockets, and tossed out his keys, his phone, 2 receipts, a crumpled gum pack. Performance. He tapped his jeans. "Happy?" "The other pocket," I said. He froze a fraction, then fished the wallet and a folded stack of bills. He put the bills down first, then the wallet, like he could control the order of the story by controlling the order of the items. I took a step closer, but didn't touch anything. "Emily, would you read the fine print on the bills?" I asked. She picked one up with a trembling hand. Her eyes scanned, found it, and went wider. "For motion picture purposes," she read, voice breaking on the last word. He lunged for bravado. "Those aren't mine. He planted those." "The tracker planted itself?" I tapped my phone and made book ring. A bright chirp sounded inside his wallet, like a conscience with a ringtone. He flinched as if the sound could burn. I let it ring twice, then silenced it. "I put the tracker in the wallet last night," I said, and kept my eyes on him. "When it moved, my phone told me. When it left the den, my phone told me. It's telling me now it's been in your pocket since 1:38 a.m. He looked at Emily, not me. "It was a joke," he said quickly, as if choosing the least awful word in a shrinking dictionary. "The water. I didn't spit. It was a prank. Art, I was angry, okay? You treat me like a kid. I wanted to get you back for all the..." "For what?" My voice rose a half step, then steadied. You letting me live here? For cooking you dinner? For trusting you with my daughter's sleep? I nodded at the screen. You didn't prank me. You contaminated what I put to my mouth in the dark. You stole cash and wiped the shelf like you'd been taught how to leave no trace. That isn't mischief. That's contempt. She stared at the bills like they might rearrange into a different meaning if she looked hard enough. Did you take... How much have you taken? She asked, but she never took her eyes off the stack. He tried one more route. This is a setup. He hates me. He's been looking for a reason to... I slid the repair notebook toward Emily and opened to the serial number page. My pencil circles were neat, each date a small tombstone. 1200 became 11, became 10, I said. I wrote every missing serial number the day it happened, and now we have you in the room at the times it happened. You can say the camera lies. Numbers do not. Silence took a seat with us and stayed. The TV threw blue against Victor's cheekbones. The clock in the hallway counted out our shared humiliation. I put my hand flat on the mantel over the thumb drives. Victor, I said, and I used his name like a door closing. You have a choice. You can take a bag, walk out today, and we will not have to explain this to officers in my living room. Or we can call them now, and I will hand them this footage, these drives, and this notebook. I won't argue with you. I won't let you touch me. Those are the only two doors. He looked at Emily for rescue. She didn't move toward him. She set the prop bill down like it was hot and stared at her wedding ring as if it were a word she no longer knew how to pronounce. You spit in my father's water, she whispered, barely words. In his bedroom? She closed her eyes and shook her head once, a tiny motion full of ages. Get your things. Something in him wanted to explode. I saw it gather behind his teeth. He glanced at my phone, then at my shoulders, calculating the heat he could bring into this room. I lifted the phone a fraction and said, "Don't." It wasn't bravado. It was a request to the part of him that still recognized consequences. He turned, muttering what cowards mutter. Setup, psycho, overreaction. The words small and brittle in the bright room. He stomped down the hall. A minute later, dresser drawers opened and shut like doors in a cheap hotel. Emily stood, steadied herself on the couch, and left the room without looking at me, footsteps going to the bedroom she had shared with him. I didn't follow. How do you comfort your child in the exact second you've shattered the illusion that kept her from drowning? What was I supposed to say? You're welcome, and I'm sorry, in the same breath? He came back with a duffel, zipper not quite closing over a pile of clothes. He avoided my eyes. He set the wallet and the prop bills on the table because some part of him understood that you don't carry the evidence of your disrespect past the man you disrespected. At the door, he tried one more thing, the tenderness act. "Em, we can fix." She lifted a hand and he stopped. "No," she said. "One syllable. Clean as a blade. Go." He went. The house didn't cheer. It exhaled. I pressed my palm to the mantel until the wood warmed beneath it and waited for my knees to unlock. Emily returned a minute later with her face washed and swollen. She didn't ask for proof again. She didn't ask for details. She sat beside me on the couch, stared at the paused frame of my nightstand, and cried. Quiet, adult crying that has nothing to do with noise and everything to do with what is over. After he left, the house sounded like it had swallowed its own echo. Emily and I sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch, both of us staring at the frozen frame on the TV. My nightstand, the glass, the angle of a hand I wished I could unsee. She wiped her face with the cuff of her sleeve, then stood like a person climbing out of a river. "I need to call in," she said, and took her phone to the hallway. I heard her ask for the day, voice even in the way people get when the only thing holding them up is the script of an ordinary sentence. When she came back, she didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She opened the hall closet, pulled out a stack of boxes, and carried them to the bedroom she'd shared with him. She moved like she was cataloging a small museum, his work boots, his 3 identical hoodies, the mug he liked, the cologne he never wore. I fetched more boxes and stood in the doorway, tape gun in my hand, the metallic zip a metronome for the morning. At 10 a.m., she texted him. It was 3 words, "Come get everything." No please, no punctuation. The tracker stayed quiet in a kitchen drawer. I'd slid it there after he left, as if I could put away the sound of evidence. I called a locksmith. "Today, if you can," I said. He could. Noon. We didn't talk much. She folded. I labeled. Bedroom, his. Bathroom, his. Kitchen, Misk. In the den, I opened the hollow book, removed the decoy wallet, flipped the shock switch off, and put the prop bills back in the prop drawer where I keep the weird detritus of a lifetime of fix-it ideas. I took out my repair notebook, wrote the date, and drew a line under the page with the serial numbers like a foreman closing a job. Emily taped a box and sat on it. "How did I not see it?" she asked. But she didn't look at me, and I knew she wasn't really asking me. What answer could fix a question that big? That love makes you believe the better story? That people hide the part of themselves they're most ashamed of in the same room they sleep in with you? I said, "Because you're kind," and let the rest stay unsaid. At 11:20, a car door slammed out front. He didn't knock. He came in with the same forward tilt I'd seen on the video, like momentum was a substitute for permission. He looked at the boxes, then at Emily. "I'll be quick," he said, soft for show. She didn't answer. He carried 2 boxes to the car, then a third. On the 4th trip, he tried a sentence like a hand sliding toward a tender place. "We don't have to do it like this." "We do," she said. Not anger, just a wall. The locksmith arrived while Victor was wrestling with a duffel, a stocky man in a navy polo, tool bag thumping against his leg. "Front and back," I said. "Add a bar to the slider." He nodded, got to work. The drill sang. Chips of brass fell like confetti for a party no one wanted. Victor heard and stopped in the hall. "Are you serious?" he asked me. I didn't answer. The locksmith driver bit down and turned. The old cylinder came out like a rotten tooth. By noon, the house had an unfamiliar gravity, the feeling of a place returning to fit its own walls again. Victor made his last trip through the living room and set a key on the entry table with a little clack, as if to declare he was the one doing the leaving. He started to say something to Emily, her name, a sentence that might have begged, but she lifted her palm, and he went quiet. He looked at me like a man searching for a fight he could win. I kept my hands in my pockets and my mouth closed. He left. The door clicked on a lock he would never hold again. We stood there a long time, Emily and I and the locksmith. He wiped his hands and said, "All set." And when I paid him, he put a spare key on the counter. I slid it to Emily. "This is yours," I said. "No one else gets one without both of us agreeing." Boundaries didn't have to be cruel to be solid. They just had to exist. After the locksmith left, I unplugged the bedroom camera and set it on the dresser. I left the den one where it was for now, not out of fear, but because it felt like a guard at parade rest, no longer necessary, still respected for what it did. I washed the nightstand glass twice, and then decided it had done enough miles with me. I put it in the donation box and took a new one from the cupboard. I oiled the wood with the same lemon scent I'd used for years, the cloth leaving small moons where my palm had been. I straightened Ruth's photo a quarter-inch toward the lamp. "We're okay," I told her. I think I was telling myself. Emily wandered the hallway like a person learning the shape of a room in the dark. "I need some space tonight," she said. "I'll stay with a friend. I'll come back tomorrow for the rest." I nodded. "Do you want me to drive you?" I asked. "No, but can you leave the porch light on?" It was the smallest request and the largest. "Always," I said. She packed a tote with clothes and a toothbrush and stood in the doorway with her hand on the frame the way she used to when she was a teenager deciding whether to say sorry. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for what? Choosing proof over wishful thinking? For letting the trap be a mirror? For not calling the police and making this uglier?" I didn't ask her to specify. "I love you," I said. "I know," she answered, and left. When the car's growl was a memory, the house exhaled for real. I put the thumb drives in a small fire safe with the birth certificates and Ruth's ring appraisal. I slid the repair notebook onto the top shelf, closed but within reach. I made a sandwich because hunger had returned with its ordinary needs. I sat at the kitchen table and ate half, not because it tasted good, but because living insists on small rituals, even when your heart is sore. In the afternoon, I took Victor's towel off the back of the chair, folded it, and put it with the donate pile. I pulled the couch away from the wall and swept. I found a coin, a rubber band, and a paperclip. No metaphor, just the benign litter of a life shared too long. I opened the windows. The late light slanted across the rug the way it always has, and for the first time in months it looked like my rug, and not a territory we negotiated with size. Frank called around 3. "How's the patient?" he asked, meaning me. "Stable," I said. He grunted. "You did right." I told him about the locksmith, the boxes, the porch light. He said, "That porch light line is a good one, Art. Keep it on for yourself, too." Evening came in quiet boots. I made a small dinner. I set 2 plates and covered one with foil out of habit, then removed it because ritual must yield to truth. I took my water to the bedroom and put it on a fresh coaster. I didn't check the cameras. I didn't need to. I opened a window, listened to the crickets tune themselves, and lay down on a bed that had been mine all along. What does peace sound like after months of holding your breath? It sounds like your own house telling you, finally, that you are safe here. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, I could make out the soft rectangle of Ruth's photo. "We're okay," I said again, and this time I believed it. There's a numbness that shows up after a storm, the kind that doesn't ask your permission before it wraps itself around your ribs and slows everything down. I felt that, sitting in my kitchen with a new glass and a quieter clock, realizing that endings rarely sound like thunder. They sound like a door that will not open to the same key again, like the hum of a refrigerator, like your own breathing synced to a house that has finally stopped bracing. People talk about forgiveness like it's a hallway you walk down and out the other side. I don't know. Today, forgiveness looks more like boundaries I can hold without shaking. Keys counted, doors respected, cash in a bank instead of a book, cameras boxed because I intend to need them less. It looks like telling my daughter the truth even when her face folds in front of me, and then sitting beside her without fixing it, because love can be steady even when it cannot be easy. I keep thinking about that glass, a simple thing that did the job it was made to do until someone decided it could carry their contempt. Maybe that's the lesson I'm taking from all this, to pay attention to what I bring into a room, to do ordinary kindness like it matters, because it does, to refuse to swallow whatever bitterness someone else is desperate to make mine. If you're watching this and you're sitting with your own stack of doubt, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what helped me. Proof before accusation, plans before anger, a list on a countertop you can point to when your hands start to shake, and afterward, mercy where you can manage it, mostly for yourself. The porch light is on, for Emily, for me, for anyone trying to find their way back to a home that doesn't hurt.